Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So we've moved indoors. We're now set up in the Ping fitting bay here, and we're going to run through the Ballnamic software. We're going to talk about the development of that with Marty.
Yep.
Really keen to hear about how this kind of came about in concept and how it's now been utilized in fittings.
Yeah, you know, I think it all started with, like, our founder Karsten said the golf ball is the tuning fork to the club, right? So we need to follow what the ball's doing in order to optimize the club. Now, at Ping, we don't make balls anymore. We did for a while, back in the day with the two-tone balls. But we've always been testing balls, because as balls change, we need to change how we design our center of gravities and friction to get the right spin. So we've always had our eye on balls, and we've noticed something pretty interesting the last 5 to 10 years is that golf balls have become more diverse.
Yeah.
You guys have seen it in some of your testing with initial conditions, how much you can change spin. Well, there's also scenarios where our tour players were seeing things happening with initial spin rate that wasn't making sense to them with how the ball would fly. So we're digging into that, and it turns out that a lot of that performance downrange on the golf course is driven through aerodynamic properties of the ball. So there's the initial conditions, which you see with your indoor space, changes in ball speed, launch, and spin. But then there's some things happening outdoor. So we've been testing that a lot. And part of us, we were kind of frustrated. Well, if the balls are all this different, how do we design our clubs?
Yeah.
Well, then we flipped it around and said, if balls are this different, then we can use it to fit club and ball together. And this is exactly what the tour players do. Right? They're fitting their driver, and his driver spin ratios change.
Yeah.
They need something different in the wind conditions. They need a ball that spins more around the green, something that feels softer off the putter. They need their irons to go higher, but the driver to go lower. You can marry all these things together, and Ballnamic brings that tool to the table.
Very cool. It's it's the one key element that's in play on every single choice we make in the bag, right? It's the 15th option. You get your 14 clubs, and then you've got your golf ball selection. And in terms of performance, we need such different things as we go from the top end of the bag down to the bottom. We want, great launch conditions, great ball speed, the right spin rate with the driver. We need certain elements with the putter. We're looking for a certain amount of feel. We're looking to maximize dwell time. We're looking for all these kind of key things at one end of the bag and the other, and a bunch in between when we get into those scoring clubs. You guys have got some tremendous data about the distance the average player hits their second shot from. So again, how do you select your golf ball in that 140 to 160 range from a score and proximity perspective? It's just incredibly beneficial for a golfer to add this information to their package.
So what we'll walk through today is how we do our testing, a little bit of how we do our testing, and then how we turn that into exactly what you talked about. How do you choose ball on how it performs on the driver, your irons, your wedges, your short game, your putting? Right? And kind of we've kind of walked through how a tour player thinks about a ball. So this is pretty interesting data here. So these are 3 different balls on the market right now. The red one is a ball that has a high lift and drag. The blue one has a low lift and drag. And the orange is kind of the middle of the bell curve. And that's what all of our fitting charts are based off, right? We've looked at our driver optimal chart. We've looked at our 7-iron landing chart. Those are based off of like the middle of the road in terms of aerodynamic flight. Those 3 balls right there have the same initial launch conditions. So that's approximately tour average driver, right? 171.5 ball speed, 10.8, 25, 26. But they're flying down range drastically different. And so in order for that blue ball to fly as high as the top ball, it would need to increase its spin by 800 RPMs. So you got to go down 400 RPMs to go to the bottom of aerodynamic differences, and up 400 RPMs on the other side. So that's how much the aerodynamics matter. They matter across a range of like 800 RPMs. And so it's a really big difference. And so how we do our testing, and this is a picture of when we're getting done with our testing, and the sun is barely starting to rise. So normally we do our testing in the pitch black, and we hit the golf balls out there, and we measure it with radar. The radar doesn't need to see the visible flight; it's measuring the flight. And the reason why we do that is we need to create like a dome-like environment. So virtually no wind. We're measuring, we have wind gauges and anemometers downrange. And that's also the time when the temperature gradient, when you start your test and you end your test, is very tight.
Right.
We want to control all those variables, and so we can hit them, measure the initial conditions, we measure how they fly downrange, and then we can decode the lift and drag coefficient and the spin decay of all the balls on the market. And that powers the engine behind Ballnamic, and also powers all of our other fitting tools. That's you can say, okay, I got fit with this ball, but how would I perform outdoors with this other ball? This is what our radar sees downrange of two balls with the exact same initial launch conditions. Okay, so that means that, again, you guys are doing a great job of fitting and comparing balls indoors, but as you said, Ian, you guys might not be seeing the full picture of what's happening downrange.
Totally.
Ballnamic allows you to make that transition. Even for us having that ability of hitting downrange, we can't. It's tough for us to have 30 balls and have the player hit a bunch of these different balls to see those differences.
Yeah.
It's actually better if we can just kind of simulate what's going to happen.
Right.
And so now that we can do that, we can kind of decode differences in the lift and drag, and that's ultimately what's happening. Right, you have these differences in the coefficient of lift, in the coefficient of drag, that are changing pretty dramatically downrange. Now, another thing we can do with this, I think I have a slide on it here, is simulate between ball A and ball B. Now that we have these models, we can throw wind at the golf ball, right?
So cool.
So good.
This is really cool. So but again, this is what tour players come to us and say, hey, you know, they do a lot of trial and error testing. This ball's, I'm noticing this ball's better in the wind, crosswinds, it's hold its line tighter.
Right.
This is the slang they use. Well, we can actually quantify what they're experiencing, right? And then pass along this tool. So when we get to Ballnamic and we get to the interview, in terms of marrying what you need with what your preferences are, hey, I really, play in the wind a lot, and I start hitting offline, I hit it thin, I get it ballooning. I want a ball that's tighter, more stable in the wind. Now we can have a metric. We throw wind at the ball, and we measure the difference between no wind and into the wind, and that is part of our wind score, how we score how good or bad balls are in breezy conditions.
Yeah, that's an amazing one, because who really plays in dome-like conditions all the time? I mean,
None of us.
If we travel and we play lots of golf, and we're going to experience different conditions, but a baseline, sort of performance metric of speed, launch, and spin indoors, the way we are forced to test right now, is not the most accurate way of looking at it. You guys are going layers deeper than that with this, which is great.
Yeah, it is pretty fun. So we've done a lot of fun things with wind. So not only do we test for aerodynamics, but then we test golf balls like you guys have done with wedges and finishes and spin retention. So different balls can have different spin retention characteristics, similar to hydrophobicity in our wedges and grooves. We certainly see very big differences, and that controls how prone you are to getting a flyer with a certain ball. So the ultimate marriage of club and ball fitting together is a groove face design, Micromax grooves, the Hydro Pearl finish with a ball that reduces the probability, that keeps your spin retention. And you can marry those two things together if that's a friction point for you as a golfer. So we test them there. We test them on a sweep of different wedge conditions to see how much they spin around the greens. As you guys know, a ball can have high spin on a full wedge, but less spin on chipping, right? And that's where the layers come in and what the ball designers are doing there, or it can have the opposite. And so again, Ballnamic allows you to fit all those different categories of the ball holistically.
Wow.
And we can kind of walk through and
let's
do a fit there.
Let's do that. Let's look at it from a customer perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too. You took it to, tour players come to you guys for this info. The fact that we can now take this information, put it into a fitting session for our customers, and they can walk out with a golf ball, of choice that's going to better their game. It's night and day difference.
It really is, and I think in your role as director of club fitting and club building, giving our fitters the right tools, the best tools to take it again further on in terms of performance. The get the fit great, but then let's put the icing on the cake. When it comes to the ball that's going to really bring out the performance.
The amount of science that's gone behind this, to not offer it, you'd be silly. It's a value add for the fitters and a value add for the customer.
Totally.
All right, so who wants to run through this? We got Matt's numbers. We can throw him through.
Let's throw Matty's numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So handicap
9 to 15.
9 to 15. Scratch or better.
Scratch or better, yeah.
Okay. Now we have the option to put in your current ball, but you don't need to. And you notice our first choice are I don't know, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
smart.
It
I like
varies,
that.
right? So we can do that if you want to have that as a comparative baseline. So right now, playing the
I've got a Titleist Pro V1X.
okay Titleist Pro V1X, and we notice we have the year in here. That's very important because balls change a lot year over year. So assuming you're using the latest one, what's your typical playing temperature and altitude?
I would say throughout the summer, 80 safe.
Yeah,
Okay.
80-ish and then 500.
Yeah,
500.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of getting some information from your golfer. Now this is pretty fun. If you're logged in as a fitter, it defaults to your launch conditions. Now if a customer goes through it, they can put in their driving distance. Hey, I hit it high, hit it low. Come over here, and we will estimate your launch conditions for you, which is pretty good. But Matt, what do you think typical ball speed launch and spin driver?
170.
Okay.
Putting 11 in.
Yeah, 11 and 22.
11:22. So we'll go right there. Boom. Okay, now this is a new feature, Ian, that we added, which is we will look at those launch conditions, and this is synergizing our driver optimal chart with Ballnamic together in the back end, okay? And we can provide a recommendation here of whether we think you need a ball that flies a little higher or a little bit lower. Now you can override this, but our algorithms say that your current driver's peak height is 89.7, and we recommend you get to 96.4.
Yeah.
So we will throw you in a ball that kind of flies a little bit higher off the driver. Okay, and it's probably because that spin number was a little lower than what our chart would say is optimal. And
Yeah.
again, we're looking at the medium trajectory ball. So we can leave that there, or if you prefer kind of the height that you're hitting it, we can move it back down.
No, I think that's great.
Okay. And then here it is, wind performance. So is that of high importance to you, not important, or moderately important?
Definitely moderate.
Okay. So we went to driver. Now about 7 irons. 7 iron launch conditions. 130 or 127.
127's about.
127 with your regular irons. Launch at 16-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And spin 65.
that would be
Is that what we saw out there?
really good.
Okay. And then we can use this again, stopping power. Okay, now we're looking at our iron landing angle chart and we're marrying that to golf ball.
Right.
Do we think, you can override this, but do we think you need a ball that lands steeper or shallower? And this is saying you're right in the sweet spot of the middle of the road. Like if you want moderate landing angle, you're in a good spot. And then workability. Do we want a ball that curves the least or that has the most workability, right? Or
for you curving
some
less.
workability.
Slightly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean you're not one for really trying to work on shape a lot. So
I prefer to see the ball fly straight.
yeah, I'd say curving less.
Okay,
Dramatically.
least curve.
Yeah.
Now what about flyer prevention? Is this a pain point for you? Like dewy mornings, light rough, jumpers?
Based on where I play, I think moderate is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can usually allow for it.
Okay. Now, fun thing about Ballnamic is we can go to the end, go back and change these and
Okay,
rerun the
cool.
results.
Yeah.
So we can always tweak things. Okay, full wedge spin. Do you like your full wedges? So picture like gap wedge. You know, your club, you're going to be maximizing the spin.
Yeah.
Do you want it spinning more, less, or kind of moderate? Kind of moderate.
Moderate, I think.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't say you
wanna
need to
rip
spin
it
it more.
No.
I think you spin it a good amount. You don't need to spin it less. So I think moderate's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then green side spin. So this is for the folks that do bump and runs,
Yeah.
where more spin on their golf ball green side might hurt them.
Yeah.
Right? You have it checked and you're like, oh, I didn't want that. You know? Or do you want to hit the low sizzlers, right? What would you say from a green side spin? High importance to kind of have that low launch high spin, or
I'm more
moderate?
of a using trajectory to stop the ball.
Okay.
guy, So I don't think I need to be ripping it off.
Yep. So I would say moderate. Now again, we've walked through drivers, irons, wedges, and now we're getting to feel. So do you care how firm or soft golf ball feels around the greens? When we first launched this, we didn't have this question.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because some people are like, well, you know, optimize it for everywhere else, and I don't really care that much,
Yeah,
you know, around the greens. So if you do, then we have a scale from, very soft to very firm in terms of feel. So, Maddie, what are you thinking on this one in terms of putter feel?
Medium is fine.
Okay. And then we have, you can filter by, price point
Price,
buckets,
yeah, that's
right?
cool.
That's smart.
So we can always go back and jump around and look at that as well. So, okay, that's it. In true Ping fashion, we quote the precision and accuracy of all of our testing. If you're interested in how many standard deviations we can discern, a statistically significant result over another, which is important. And then it tells you that we're going to have trophies on the results page, which are going to tell you which balls are kind of quote unquote winners as well.
Very cool.
Okay, so here we go. This is a rank ordered results of top matches to your game, what you needed, and your preferences. Okay, so the Tour BX, these are all a high match score. Right. So these are all 90 over 93%. So Tour BX being the top overall match, and that's when we look at all the categories combined together. The Wilson Triad ball, the Chrome Soft X, and if we go a little further, Max Fly Tour,
Really?
and then the Pro V1X is a really good match.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's good.
93.6. So that's up there. So those are all quite good match scores. And then some fun things you can explore here. We return results in all the different product categories. So we simulate your driving distance, your driver peak height, your wind score, 7-iron carry, 7-iron workability. And so you notice here the Wilson Triad won for workability because you wanted to hit it as straight as possible.
Yeah.
So that ball curves the least, right? Now, the idea behind this results page is not necessarily that you take this top ball and run with it.
Yeah. Right.
It's that now you get a comparative matrix in all these categories, and you can talk back and forth and say, actually, this is a little bit more important for me here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you might choose the second, third, or fourth ball. You might choose to try the top 2 balls,
Yep.
go play them on the course, and get some experience with them. So we can also have an Explore Results tab that shows the trajectories. Again, we got a driver trajectory comparing your current ball to the Bridgestone. So the X, as we know, flies higher.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a higher peak height than the Bridgestone. But when you throw it into the wind, the Bridgestone's going to go a little bit further, right? 7-iron trajectory, very big difference. So that Bridgestone goes high on the irons and far, and we've seen that. We've seen it. So you can have a ball that goes lower on the driver, and then it switches and it'll fly higher on the irons. And then same thing with the into the wind trajectory. That Bridgestone's going to be better in terms of into the wind again, because the X, the Pro V1X, has more lift and drag.
It's huge.
Right?
That's a really big deal.
What I think so fantastic about that as well is we've got 5 results there, or 5 options, your ball being one of them. So there's 3 golf balls that you would probably at some point try. You try a Chrome Soft X, you would try a Bridgestone BX.
I have, yeah.
You would never try a Max Fly, and you would never try the
Triad.
The Triad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never try it.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
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 So there's kind of 2 options that you would never even consider until now. Yeah, I love that when our fitters now talk, so in their fitting desk they've got a drawer and they've probably got 10, 12 different golf balls in there that they'll throw down in the fit. I love that their minds are now thinking golf ball when they're fitting product.
totally.
I think that's great.
Yep.
What's great with this is, though, you guys have taken it several levels on in terms of doing the aerodynamic tests for us.
Yes.
So when we need to speak, with an educated fashion about, okay, well, we see that we want launch and spin like this, but you might want to avoid that because you play in the wind and this golf ball maybe isn't performed as good as that.
Yep.
As a resource, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I mean, thank you for developing this, because you guys didn't have to do this. You don't have skin in the game. You don't have a ball to sell. You don't have an agenda other than helping golfers, and in the field, your fitters do a better job. So thank you on behalf of everyone for doing this, because it's such a fantastic resource.
Yeah, you got it, Ian. It was fun because we've always helped fit our customers here at Ping for ball, and now being able to build it and help you get, and touch our end customers and marry those 2 things together, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
It really, really is.
So.
Guys, I mean, you've heard us harping on about the value of choosing the right golf ball for you guys for a long, long time now. You see in fits, if the fit isn't going a certain way, the testing session with Matt is not going a certain way, normally the first thing for us to flip out is the golf ball to get it into the window that we're looking for. You guys can have access to that too through the Ballnamic resource. It is something that you absolutely have to just at home go through the process, see what you know, how the golf ball compares to kind of what you currently use. Maybe start to narrow that down in terms of, I know people will say, I use whatever's in my bag. Maybe try and avoid that one if you really want to play your best. And this is a great tool and resource to help you do that. So really, really cool stuff. All right, guys, stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.